So this is a live video with a market update. It has been absolute chaos out there in the last few weeks, but especially today. So the numbers that I'm going to read off are at the time of recording. But just before we do that, just to let you know that whilst this Trump news and tariff news was going on today, I was recording a podcast episode with Dr. Naomi Prinz. That will be out tomorrow. We did mention that, very crazy things are happening, and that I'll put a disclaimer on that podcast when it's out tomorrow, because we did ask a pertinent question, which was, would Trump or Powell blink first? And given what we've seen today, it looks like Trump has blinked first. So that disclaimer will come out on that podcast tomorrow. So the key news from today is that there is a 90-day pause on most of the tariffs. Of course, the ones on China are still ongoing. They've gone from 34% up to 104%, now 125%. China's retaliated their end as well. And of course, that's creating, quite a bit of general uncertainty in the markets. That being said, the pause on tariffs today, so 90-day pause on most of the countries, most of the tariffs. And looking at the numbers at the moment, the Dow Jones index is up about 2,700 points, which is about 7.2%. The Nasdaq up 1,700, nearly 1,800 points. That's just over 10%. The S&P 500 is up about 8.4%. That's up for just over 400 points at the moment. And then things like Brent crude, that's up by just over $4. Natural gas up by nearly $3. $3. 284 points. My apologies. And then looking at the metals, silver up. Gold's been on the loose for most of the day actually. Even before the policy change or this tariff announcement, gold has been on the loose. That's up just over $100 at the moment, trading around about $3,090 at the time of recording. So yes, there's chaos out there at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty. For those that have been following my work, you will know that I've said that I believe there's going to be a blow off top. Now, this is just Trump acting. What could happen at some point, if not between now and May, then in the May meeting, will be the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Now, his thoughts on tariffs are that they are inflationary. If he believes that and continues to believe that, then the odds are that he will look to increase interest rates. Now, we can look at bond yields, we can look at all of the above. And again, I'd urge you to go listen to the podcast tomorrow with Dr. Naomi Prinz, because she really goes deep dives into it, first of all. But secondly, she goes through in layman's terms what bond yields are, etc. I found it really useful. Check that out tomorrow. But I imagine that Powell is going to be looking at the bond rates, bond yields. Now, last Friday, they dipped just below 4%, which is obviously very good. And then Monday, Tuesday, and today, they got up to about 4.5%. And at the time of doing this, we're about 4.3%. That's on a 10-year US Treasury. Now, of course, a lot can happen between now and when that Fed meeting happens in May. Given the playbook we've seen before, global financial crash, 2020, etc., what the Fed are trying to do at the moment is that they are undertaking QT, quantitative tightening, and then they will likely, if they don't lower rates, they would likely start doing some QE, quantitative easing. Now, they might be upfront and honest about that, or they might do it in a stealthy way. I don't know. But we've seen this playbook before. Fed normally comes in to the rescue, then all hell could break loose from there. That's my thesis. That's my idea, my personal idea, for there being a blow off top. Now, the intraday rallies today, again, Dow Jones, the swing's been just under 4,000 points between the low and the high. S&P 400 about just under a 600 point swing. For The Nasdaq, it's about 2,400 point swing intraday. This is crazy. This is high volatility, which is ironic given now that the VIX index has gone down quite dramatically. It doesn't mean that we're now in a in a bull market. There's still a lot of caution out there. Again, my personal opinion, personal belief is that there's going to be a big blow off top. Today might have been the start. A lot of people on the other side will say, look, we're in a bear market. We're in more of a recession mode. We should be selling the rips here. So that's for you to obviously look at a lot of analysts and understand, their points of view. My personal opinion is, if it's not just Trump today, it could be Jerome Powell in May and June that the Fed's going to cut, and then that's just going to exacerbate the situation. Now, yes, the tariff news is going to change every day. Even Trump this morning, I believe on Truth Social, had put that this could be a good time to buy or something along those lines. I think he put that out at about 7:30 Eastern, I think. So again, we're just in that time where we've got a much more, or the USA has got a much more active president in terms of social media. And again, I'm not saying any of this is right. I'm not saying, there's within politics, there's always going to be people benefiting from this sort of shenanigans. That's just life. He put out that on Truth Social this morning, and he must have known what was coming. And again, we've seen these massive intraday rips, and who knows what will happen tomorrow? Who knows what will happen for the rest of the week? Go back on the tariffs. Yes, there's a 90-day pause on most of them. However, because it seems like things are heating up between the USA and China, again, really until that gets resolved, if it gets resolved, then I think we're possibly in a bit of limbo. Also, what's not helping is the fact that it looks like the USA is potentially preparing for war with Iran. Now, whether that happens, I don't know, because they could be looking at oil in particular. Who knows what's going on there? I'm not going to claim to know all of that. Anyway, ramblings aside, a very chaotic day in the markets. It's been pretty much bonkers for the last week, ever since the initial tariffs were, that infamous chart came out. So, but this level of volatility is absolutely incredible. It really is. All of that being said, if you are a holder of physical gold, then probably none of this really affects you. Now, I'm not here to make, I'm not an independent financial advisor, so I'm not here to offer financial recommendations or financial advice. What I would say is, if you are yet to take a position in physical gold, physical silver, then please do your homework. Please go and listen to all the podcasts that I've done about gold, about silver, some of the writings as well about the metals. It could be a very prudent time in order to start purchasing physical metals. Again, that's not a financial recommendation. Always do your own homework. At some point, certainly in the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to go into a commodity super cycle. Now, take tariffs out of the equation. Let's just say that the Fed does cut rates. That's going to be inflationary. Tariffs are also inflationary as well. So there's going to be a lot of inflation coming down the road. Now, if we do get a big recession and a big pullback, then the chances are, that could act as, deflationary. However, once all that recovers, and if the Fed steps in with big QE, whatever it might be, then we could be off to the races after that. Do check out tomorrow's podcast with Dr. Naomi Prinz. Keep a cool head out there in terms of the markets. And if you are yet to subscribe to the Contrarian Capitalist, please do so. On the latest post I've done today about the gold standard in Britain, also offering out 30% off for life. That offer is valid until Monday, the 14th of April. Again, if you go to that post or any of the podcasts this week, have a look for the button and you'll be able to take advantage of that. If you're yet to subscribe to Contrarian Capitalist, please do so. And thank you very much for watching the video. We'll be back with that podcast tomorrow with Dr. Naomi Prinz, and then also the weekly wrap on Friday after market close. Take care.